The greatest power you possess is your ability to choose. Join Lowe's Moore as he reveals how you can begin to maximize that power by exploring yourself on the deepest levels and committing to making lasting and positive changes. Get ready to achieve breakthroughs that will lead to accelerated growth and transformation, because you are now tuned in to The Blueprint.
Why the actions contradict the lamb. I'm fellowshipping when I'm with the fam. That's more relations.
Good evening and welcome back. This is Lowe's Moore, and you are watching the Blueprint podcast. And I'm excited tonight. Really excited. And I ultimately want to jump right in, but I gotta get some other things, do some house cleaning and different things like that. I've had a week, and I want to thank my oldest son, Lowe's Moore the third. We call him Losey. Last week he did an amazing job, man. He had Courtney Lynn on, an actress. Well, I would say now is not actress or actor. It is a actor, regardless of male or female. You are actor, and she was on. We've known Courtney since Losey went to school in California, Occidental College in California. They were classmates, graduated together, and just talented. We knew they were extremely talented, even though and they participated in a number of things within that school, and both graduated, and now they're in this world of acting. And I don't know if you were interested in acting, or you have children that were interested in becoming actors. But last week they dropped some dimes. Last week they dropped some nuggets last week. And if you weren't watching, go to Lowe's Moore, the Blueprint on Facebook, and you can watch it again. All the shows are still there. You can continue to watch them. Sometimes you don't receive anything from the when you're watching the first time, but sometimes when you go watch something the second time, it's like sports. The key to success in sports is repetition. Well, first of all, doing it right and then repeating it. Repetition is just a powerful thing that you have to learn to be able to do. So watch Lowe's and Losey, Lowe's the third, and Courtney Lynn on our last show last week. And they did an awesome job. But if you're looking to be an actor, or you're looking to learn some principles about life and how to get through struggle, check that out. And so I'm really looking forward to. I'm going to drop my pebble. I got my pebble. I'm dropping my pebble in the pond. I always say that. I didn't say it, but Denzel Washington said I was like a pebble that you drop in a pond, and there's a ripple effect. Right? Everybody drops their pebble in the pond. We're hoping that everybody has a ripple effect. We believe that this show, the Blueprint Podcast, when the individuals that we interview, that they have been so transparent, they have been so open, they have been so powerful, that I believe that there's going to be a ripple effect. Somebody will hear something tonight that will be a blessing in their life, and it will give off a ripple effect. And somebody will hear it and man, not think anything of it. And somewhere down the road, you will think of something. You say, I heard somebody say that, or I heard somebody talking about that. And then all of a sudden, you put it into action. So I'm looking forward to that. And let me say this too. My book is behind me, from the Boys and Girls Club to the NBA, Life on the Narrow Road, the Lowe's Moore Chronicles. And, I was just kind of flipping through it. And I was in chapter 4, and I was thinking about that, something that I had written about the importance of purpose, right? Purpose is so important, and the importance of gifts, right? We all are born. I said it in the book. We are all born with gifts, and those gifts have purpose. There's a reason for the gift. So, hey, take that to heart. Everyone that's out there, you all have a gift. right? And there's a reason and there's a purpose for that gift. One of my favorite mentors, God rest his soul, Dr. Miles Monroe. I heard him say he was talking about the wealthiest places in the world, the wealthiest places on earth. And he mentions, yeah, the diamond mines, the gold mines, the coal mines, right? But he said that those places were not the wealthiest places on earth. He said the cemetery was. All those people who had dreams, all those people who had goals, all those people who aspired to be doctors and lawyers and own businesses and write scripts and find cures for diseases, go to their grave without ever finding their purpose and using their gift for that purpose. I mean, just a very powerful thing. And we all, and we're going to talk about it tonight, you know, no matter who you are, no matter how talented you are, no matter how good you think you are, you cannot do anything alone, right? You always need help. And sometimes you need you know, our first coaches are our parents, right? They're always telling us what to do. The problem is when they're telling us what we should do, the things that are right and wrong, most of the time we don't listen, right? And then somewhere down the line we got to come back and apologize, right? And for some of us, we don't listen to our parents, our teachers, you know, our coaches. We don't listen to them, you know, and somewhere down the line we have to either hopefully get the opportunity to come back and apologize. So I want to move forward, and I want to start out with our book of the week. There we go. Our book of the week is The Winning Edge. This is about goal setting and time management. How important is goal setting? How important is managing your time, right? And I'm not going to talk about the author right now. I'm gonna allow you to meet him a little bit later. But The Winning Edge, get that, right? We're going to tell you how to get that later on, a little bit later on in the show. And then the word of the week. The word of the week is dream. That's the word of the week. And then it says dream big, right? I mean, when I was a young guy, man, I saw the Knicks win the NBA championship, right? I'm a little guy in the projects, right? I started thinking about playing for the New York Knicks. I saw the Knicks. Of course, I saw the Knicks win the NBA championship back in 1970. I want to tell my age, 1970, 1972, win the championship, right? And I saw the parade, you know, all the balloons down 34th Street, right? Even though my television was in black and white, I still got excited about playing in the NBA and playing for the New York Knicks. So I say dream big. And one of the things I did in the 6th grade was when you dream something, I'm gonna tell you now. I'm gonna drop a nugget right now. My grandfather used to always give me these nuggets, and I'm gonna drop a dime, right? I always say, if you got a dream, write the dream down, put it on your wall. When you turn off that light, read that dream. When you wake up in the morning, read that dream. Keep that dream before your eyes. Write it down. I said that's a very powerful tool, is to write your dreams down. Then our affirmation, right? I have an affirmation up here from Walt Disney. It says, all our dreams can come true if we have the courage to pursue them. Right? Walt Disney's one of my favorite inventors. Yeah, of course he invented some of my favorite characters. I was just sure I can show you some of my pictures with some of my favorite people, man, in the whole world, like Mickey and Minnie and Goofy and Donald. I got some pictures with them, man. I was older too, man. I was in my 50s and I was excited like I was 5 years old. But yeah, every day you should wake up and say something positive about to yourself, right? Don't let people tell you who you are, right? You talk about who you are. And every day, right, you should wake up with an affirmation, a quote, something positive, something to start your energy during the day. And then finally, my music of the week. And occasionally, man, I'm in certain moods right? And I need to hear something that's going to stimulate me and excite me. I always, Bobby McFerrin, right? Don't worry, be happy. I love that song, man. I just put it on. It got that kind of little beat to it. Don't worry, be happy. I don't know if you know, that's one of my favorite songs, man. That motivates me. And then the movie, Pursuit of Happiness. That's my movie of the week, man. That's one of my favorite movies. Will Smith and his son, play that movie extremely well. And if you get a chance, the story is a real story, right? You should check that out, man. That's gonna be awesome. And then coming up next week, I'm looking forward to it. We got Mike Breen from the New York. Well, he's a commentator, journalist, announcer for the New York Knicks and the NBA. I'm looking forward to doing some things with him next week and talking, and that's going to be an awesome time. And then following him, we're going to have Derek Wittenberg, the great North Carolina State University player, coached with them for a little while. Now he told me North Carolina State is his world. I said I agree with you. He's the president of the Jimmy Valvano Foundation. So I'm looking forward to seeing Derek Wittenberg. And so without further ado, right, I'm gonna show you some highlights, and then we're gonna get to the guest of this evening. Oh man, Greg White, welcome to the Blueprint.
It's great to be here, Los.
Yeah, I mean you might want to bring your you got kind of like don't have your whole face in there, but might want to bring your either laptop down or camera down. But anyway, hey, you just showed us that um, before some of these guys that was throwing some around the back passes, man, you throwing around the back with your left hand, throwing around back with your right hand. I mean, you just showing your whole arsenal right there, and as I know, you I'm not gonna say were a great ball handler. Are a great ball handler. Let's put it that way. I know you still working on your handle, right? Because you're still doing some stuff, and I want to show you real quick a couple of pictures of us, right? And I think one you sent to me,
Mm-hmm.
right? You said you blocked my shot. I don't know about that, but well, I know I was trying to block your shot there on the right, and you did a little dipsy doodle there. So you had some stuff.
There's a little bit difference in our verticals. I think I couldn't jump up on a book, and you had a 44-inch vertical, so a little bit different. I was, beside my name. If you pull me up in the history books at Marshall, the words describing me are short, fat, slow, and overrated. So, but that was quite a time. And you don't have any idea of this, but you are a huge part of my success because I was about ready to make the biggest mistake of my life and go to WVU and sit on the bench because you were up there and going into my junior season and you showed up in Morgantown. I was a huge WVU fan. You guys had just gotten the Coliseum, and I'd been offered a scholarship my junior season by Bill Retchai and Jody Gardner, Jim D'Agostine, and I came up for a visit and I jumped in a pickup game. You won't remember it. You or Joe Frizz or Hugs won't remember it, but I saw real quickly that the skill level that the Mountaineers had at that time. You know, you were heading the group up, but I learned pretty quickly that if I was going to come to Morgantown, it was going to be my junior year before I got the opportunity to play. So as I advanced through your sophomore year, my senior year in high school, I made the decision to go to Marshall. They got a new coach and they were looking for a starting point guard, and that was the perfect school because I ended up matching up against the Mountaineers 5 times, and in those specific games, as you know, WVU's a major, Marshall's at best a mid-major. You guys played at a much higher level than we did at Marshall. We were in the Southern Conference, and I think you guys were in Atlantic 10. I can't remember the exact conference, but
Yeah, Eastern 8.
yeah, it was incredible ball. And so, anyways, those 5 matchups against the Mountaineers, we won one of the 5. My last one, and Greg Jones was ahead in the point at that point. But had I been in a situation where I was actually playing against him and you, I lost all 5 matchups in those games. So at Marshall, I held my own. So it worked out for me. God allowed me to see very clearly that I needed to be at Marshall, and it worked out beautifully. And I just spent the weekend over at alumni event, visiting my teammates, and had a wonderful weekend. But you were a huge part of my decision to go to Marshall.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. I mean, when I was a little guy, and you were an amazing ball handler, right? And I remember them saying, man, when you're going to be taking a recruit out, Joe and I,
Yeah.
yeah, you're going to be taking out a recruit. We got a recruit this week, and you're going to be taking him out, and you came in, and they kept saying, yeah, he's a tremendous ball handler. He can dribble with his knees. I said, well, I don't think in the game you can dribble with your knees, but I don't know what that means. But anyway, and then we had a good time. We did have a good time. We played a little ball. We had great conversations. It was awesome. And let me tell you one other thing about dribbling with your knees. When I was a little guy, my first basketball camp was at Bob Kaufman. I don't know if you remember Bob Kaufman.
Yeah, I remember.
Buffalo Braves, and Bob McAdoo was. And my first time on a plane for my first basketball camp was his camp. And we all slept on bunk beds and stuff like that. And it was another player there. And they were talking about this young man. They didn't know who I was, but they knew who he was. And we were just little kids. I mean, like 12 years old, 13 years old. And my mom let me go to this camp because I wanted to go there. And, they kept saying he could dribble with his knees. And sometimes during the game, he would, little games, he would sneak it in. He would sneak a couple of dribbles with his knees, and I didn't really care where he could dribble with his knees. I didn't care whether I could dribble with my knees. I was just trying to win the game. And of course I came home with, like 12 trophies, MVP, sportsmanship, all-star. And all that matters to me was like that we won, bottom line. But you, even today, you are still doing spinning the ball. I could barely spin a ball right now, but you still working on it.
But I was really lucky. I was at Rod Thorne's basketball camp. My first camp was Fritz Williams, the West Virginia great.
Oh, yes.
And I went to his camp, but I went to Rod Thorne's basketball camp, and many of your listeners will know the name Mike D'Antoni, the NBA coach, Olympic coach with Mike Krzyzewski, and D'Antoni's a longtime head coach in the NBA, 5 different NBA teams. He's from my hometown. And Mike showed me that. I was in the 7th grade. And he said, if you go home and get out in your garage or in your driveway and spin that, try to get it up on your finger 2 million times, the 2 millionth and first time it'll go up there. So for a week, I went home. I didn't shoot any or do anything else, but I tried to spin that ball. And finally, I got it up there. And I just got enamored with it. And, I still do it and, do a lot of motivational speaking now. And I start every talk with that. And, you said something as I was listening to your intro that really connected with me. The mother of skill is repetition. And you also said that we all have special gifts. And my gift has been to handle that basketball. I know you 20 points a game, played in the NBA, and those New York Knicks teams. Even though I was from West Virginia, Earl the Pearl Monroe, but my true idol was Clyde Frazier. The way he handled the ball and just the way he played. But the only problem was in South Mullins, West Virginia, where I grew up. I couldn't seem to take what I was watching with the New York Knicks, whether it be Earl the Pearl or Dick Barnett or Willis Reed, and I couldn't duplicate that. And I learned pretty quickly I wasn't much of an athlete. And Mike D'Antoni said to me one time, "You don't look like you'll be very tall, but if you can become your team's best ball handler and have the best attitude and the best work ethic, you'll be on the court." And so I took those comments from him. And the other thing is that you really resonated with me tonight when you were doing your intro is none of us can get to high places without help. God's will, God's help, but certainly our mentors. And, I got cut from those young teams that I was trying to make in Mullins, and to think I was able to go on and play college basketball and then jump into coaching and coach at UCLA. UCLA is the winningest championship program in the history of college basketball. And all those things happened through people helping me setting the goals and people encouraging me and saying you can do it, because there's so much negativity out there. And my mom used to say, don't be one of these guys that goes to your grave with your best music still in you, your best basketball still in you. Be one of these guys that does something special and set those goals, and don't allow someone else to determine the heights you can reach. And so my whole life has been basketball. So I've been so blessed. And there's very few Division I universities that I could have started at. But Marshall was a perfect fit for me. And I'm just so thankful that I came up on that visit. And the one thing that I remember more than anything else is how you and Joe treated me. And also that ice cream shop we went to.
Oh, yeah.
That was a huge ice cream.
The Mighty Mount Beer.
And you and Joe just wore that ice cream out. I couldn't quite get mine down. But that was so fun. And I could not believe that I was out there in Morgantown on a visit. You and Joe showing me around. And that's the first time I ever met Bob Huggins. And I've spent a lifetime in coaching. Bob's a great friend. I know he's a great friend of yours. And it's just amazing, the connections. Here we are after all these years matching up in games. And you far exceeded playing at a much higher level than I did, but we are still connected through the love of the game. And I remember, Lowe's, I'm in my house one day and there's a knock on my door, and I go to the door and it's you. Remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
You were in town visiting a guy you play a lot of senior Olympic basketball with, Joey Holland, who's one of my dear friends. I always tell Joey he didn't play at Kentucky. He sat on the bench and watched the Kentucky. At least I played at Marshall. But anyways, Joey is a dear friend, and you were in town, and I came over. You had your sons with you, and you guys were hooping over at George Washington High School.
Yes.
And then since that time, we've really stayed connected. And man, I've followed you, and I'm so excited for the things you're doing now and your retirement. And oftentimes through the years, people would say, "Have you ever had any contact with Lowe's Moore?" And I would be able to say, "Yes, I have." Well, what's he doing? Well, he's doing these things. And believe it or not, all those years that we were disconnected, I always managed to stay connected to a lot of people from WVU. And I followed your career, the boys club, and all the things you did, and I'm just blessed, and I really appreciate you taking the time to have me on your podcast. I'm truly honored, and I'm thinking big tonight. As I was watching your intro that your son and your wife do for you, that is absolutely motivating as heck. And I realized as I was watching my highlights that I probably needed some more work. Or maybe I should take those highlights down off my websites.
No, no. Well, other than being a little old, it'll make a difference because you've done something that a lot of young people are trying to do today,
Absolutely.
regardless of what year it is or what it looks like. People should see it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you had some skills. I just see my mom say that was the best ice cream. She just put it out. So this is interactive. So you may see some questions down at the bottom of the screen as we go along. So it's interactive and people will be asking questions. And, I want to digress for a minute. And you mentioned your mom. So, on the blueprint, we kind of talk about foundational stuff, and, and, and all of us have a blueprint and certainly our families, for me the importance of family, the importance of education, and the importance of faith. So if you can talk about family and if you can talk about education and faith, and then we'll journey into some other things that we've kind of done after basketball.
Okay, so I'll get started with my mom. My mom taught me as a kid. I was, 5, 6 years old. I had a brother and sister, an older sister who's challenged, and my brother and I, she's 63, and my brother and I share her, and we take care of her. My parents are gone, but God bless my mom's soul. She used to say all the time, the greatest skill in the history of the world is listening. And if you can learn to listen, and if you can learn to learn, you can own your world, and you can literally go back in your bedroom if you can learn to learn and read an encyclopedia or get on your computer and travel the world without leaving your bedroom.
Mm.
And my mom and dad would give me reading assignments with my siblings, and I learned pretty quickly that I lived in a home where my sister was challenged, but she was my sister. And even though she was challenged, she was just Kim to us, and she's still just Kim to us.
Right.
And so I learned, occasionally, people would make fun of her at school, whatever, and I learned, man, I'm so lucky to be her brother. And then my father was a railroader, and my father used to say to me all the time, he didn't go to college, he had a 10th grade education, but on the railroad and the coal mines, you go to work at various hours. They call you and you go. If you're working on the railroad, you'll go in at 3 o'clock in the morning and do a 12-hour shift. And oftentimes, I would get up. And my dad would be walking out with his grip of things he needed for work and his lunch bell, and he would say, "Greg, I want you to go to college." And I didn't even know what college was, but just through the repetition of, I want you to get yourself an education. I don't want you to have the life I've had. And I'm like, gosh, my dad's my idol. And then as time went on, I went on to college, and never having realized it, because I went to college, my brother goes to college. And my brother has an incredible life, owns an insurance company, and does quite well for himself. And I've had a great run. And, you know, so many great things came from my college experience, certainly my college degree. I always tell kids now, if you can get a college education, you're in the upper 1% in the world in education. When
Mm.
you think about it, um, that is something amazing. I mean, there's 7 billion people walking around the face of the earth. And if you get a college education and you can learn to communicate and dress for success and have good character, um, you can literally do anything, whether it's become a teacher or a doctor, a lawyer, a scientist, an astronaut, a governor. Um, there's just, this world is set up for success if you'll grab a hold of it. The other thing I'd want to share with, certainly any youth that are listening, or, sometimes kids aren't fortunate enough to have a mom like you were, or a father, a mom and father like I was. Maybe it's the neighbor that looks at you and says you could do something special. My high school basketball coach. 2 days ago was National Coaches Day, and on Facebook I did a tribute. His name was Don Knuckles. He had 5 state titles, 2 NBA players, 30 college players. He was a great principal, great teacher. And my first introduction to history was in the classroom with Coach Knuckles. And I knew when I went to his class, I better have my homework done and be ready for him to call on me and me stand up and talk about history. So that listening skill, my whole life has come into gear. I'd like to share this with everyone. My mom bought me this book as a kid, and the book is The Magic of Thinking Big by David Schwartz. And I read this as a 10th grader. And this book was so incredible to my the future that I had as I grew up, because I coined the phrase "think big," and I still use that phrase "think big." And oftentimes I'll be with a kid, working a kid out. I know you still work with some kids, and I don't say bye when I leave him. I look at him and say "think big," and when I greet him, I'm like "think big." And the more someone tells you something, um, maybe you start to believe it. And so often in my life, someone's lended a hand. I know you've spent your life, Lowe's, helping people, Christian background and those things. And there's nothing in this world better than lending a hand, helping someone, and seeing the smile on their face. And my mom, I do a lot of talks, and I'll turn it back over to you, but I always start the talks off by saying in this world, there's all different kinds of people. Some people are like barrels. You got to push them. Others are like kites. You've got to hold their string or they'll fly away. Others are like neon lights. They flash on and off. Some are like footballs. You drop them, you never know which way they're going to bounce. Others are like basketballs. They'll bounce all over the place. And then there are those that are like the stock market. One day they're up, the next day they're down. But then there are those that are like good watches, classy, pure gold, open-faced, quietly busy, and full of good works. And I hope as I've advanced and matured and become a man, and now I'm, on the back nine, that I'm able to be that good watch to help people and say something to someone encouraging. Because so many times you see that kid and he's on the verge of he's ready to make a turn, and you can say something to him. I know you've done it many times, and turn his life around. Or the same for a young female. And so many times, so many people have helped me, and I've had adults and coaches. I'm headed down the wrong path, and they check me and turn me around and get me going in the right direction. So I've just been blessed, and I had great parents, and neither of my parents went to college, but that resonated with me. That listening skill, and I've used that my whole life. Is the greatest skill in the history of the world, and it's true, because you're going to come across 5 or 6 people in your life that are dying to help you. And man, if you've got your ears locked in, that can be it. I mean, that can be it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the first skills. My first basketball team, well, actually, my second, I only played one game on my first team with Coach Calvin Jones. We call him CJ. Played one game with him, and then he sent me to his brother. And I mean, just a totally different mindset. And he taught us the importance of listening. I mean, through some skill training, everything was about listening. You said absolutely said it right. To be able to hear, not just hear, but listen to what's being said is very powerful. And I always say that is in the art of communication, listening is the most powerful of all of them. You can have verbal, nonverbal communication. There's always written communication, all kind of communications, but listening is a very powerful one. And that's a nugget. We talking about nuggets and dimes. You've heard a few already, but one of the most important things, right, is listening. And so, Greg, I want to thank you for that. And um, We had some great experiences in regards to basketball. So let's talk a little bit about basketball before we journey into coaching. But talk to me about what you experienced in regards to high school and your transition into college, and because you had an amazing college career, and at the Division 1 level, right? All the things you said about yourself, slow, can't jump, all those kind of things, right? You had an amazing career, and so talk a little bit about that and some of the players that you may have played with.
Well, again, Marshall University is in West Virginia. We're the sister school, the big school, the big boy, WVU. And I have, you know, when I went to Marshall, that was a huge game for Marshall. That was just another game to you guys. I mean, you guys played such an incredibly powerful schedule. And we played, Louisville and some big teams, Dale Griffin. I mean, we had 4 or 5 big teams, but your whole league was big teams. And so, anyways, when I got to Marshall, I was, I came in with a coaching change, and I had been recruited by the University of Tennessee. A guy named Stu Aberdeen was the associate head coach, and his claim to fame is he recruited Bernard King to the University of Tennessee,
Yeah.
and Ernie Grunfeld, who from New York. And so those 2 guys were superstars and incredible players. And I go to Marshall, and because I came in with him, I was going to go to WVU, and I'm going to sign on a Monday morning. And I get a call on a Thursday night from my mom saying Stu Aberdeen, who was the associate head coach at Tennessee, got the Marshall job, and he wants to come in on Sunday and talk to me. So as God would have it, he came in, and he said, I'm going to offer you a starting position, 40 points a game or 40 minutes a game. And my mom's like, 40 minutes a game? And then I'm thinking, wow, that's crazy, because I haven't even met my team. I don't care who the point guard is. You're going to play 40 minutes a game. And he goes, by the way, who's your best friend? And I said, Bill. He goes, where is Bill? I said, he's next door. He goes, can you call him and have him come over? So my mom called. He came over. He looked Bill in the eye. He hadn't been there 5 seconds, and said, I'm not only offering you, Greg, a scholarship here today, I'm offering you a spot on the team. You can be on the team and come to Marshall with him. And I'm like, wow, so my best friend can come with me. But anyways, a lot of great things played out for me over at Marshall. But like every college athlete, I had lots of ups and downs. And but I had some really great professors. I look at, as I was going through college, I just thought for sure playing at Marshall, I was going to the NBA. But I didn't get a cup of coffee in the NBA, even though I was all league, Southern Conference, 3 years in a row. I was my team's MVP my junior and senior year, team captain junior and senior year, all-time assist leader for 40 years, and it was just broken. But I was more of a point guard, a pass first guy. But at the end of the day, I had a great career. But so much in life is, again, listening and having, recognizing your surroundings. And when I got to Marshall, I had some really, really great players on our team. One of those guys worked for Sports Illustrated for 40 years. His name was George Washington.
Yeah, that's my guy.
You know George?
Yeah, we connected after playing.
Oh, wow.
Went down and met with him at Sports Illustrated.
Yeah.
And we had lunch together. And I love George.
And so recently, about 4 or 5 years ago, I get a call from George, and he had, the print media has changed so much, they were phasing him out. So here he is in his late 50s, and he gets phased out of his job at Sports Illustrated, and he's calling his old point guard, going, "Man, I need some help. Where do I go from here?" And he was just devastated. And I said, "Are you kidding me? You've got an incredible resume, all these contacts. You got to call everybody, let them know you're unemployed." And he said, "I'd love to referee basketball." I'm like, "Well, set the goal and become a high school official." And he's doing all that. He got remarried, but to make a crazy connection. So George is my college teammate, and while George was in college, he had a child. And I become the basketball coach at Marshall. I'm 37 years old, and I'm out with my team on the track, and I'm running my team on the track, and all of a sudden. Actually, I was 40 at the time. And this young female, a beautiful gal, very athletic looking guy walks up and, excuse me, are you Greg White? And I'm like, yes. He goes, I'm George Washington's daughter. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. And she said, no. And I go, well, how often you talk to your dad? She goes, I never talk to him anymore. I'm like, why? And she started telling me this, a little bit of the story and so forth. So that year we were going to Rutgers. So I said, I'm going to take you to New York and you're going to reconnect with George. So George is working at Sports Illustrated. So that's the year that the World Trade Center happened. And the year after, we're playing at Rutgers. So we flew into the city and we had lunch, and George came over and talked to the team. Before he talked to the team, I said, hate to put you on the spot, but I brought somebody with me. And I brought his daughter with me. And man, they hugged and, cried. And she went home with George for, the whole time we were there. And I set George on the bench at Rutgers, and Gary Waters was the coach over there. And they jump up on us, and George is sitting on the bench. I said, George, I'm just going to turn this thing over to you. I know you always wanted to be a coach, so I'm going to let you coach the rest of the way. We're down like 20-5 or something. But he reconnected with his daughter, and but just so many things have happened for me, and it's been God's kind of directed. And certainly, wake up one day and my wife and I just hugged each other, and we were in a hotel, and we're in Lexington, Kentucky, where UK is, and I said to her, "Don't we have an amazing life? I'm a college coach. She's a medical doctor, and we said we do. How blessed we are." And 7 hours later, we drove home to our house that had burned down. So, like everyone, you, myself, we all have that adversity. But sports is it's the winning edge. You just learn so much. I mean, you think about how much you traveled with WVU, and that Coliseum was one of the top 5. It still is one of the top 5 gyms in America when you were playing at WVU.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was way ahead of its time.
Oh yeah.
And we played in a 6,500 seat arena, but we sold our arena out at Marshall 65 straight home games, 6,500 people.
Mm.
And I just played in front of great crowds, and I was at the right level, and God had his hand in it. And you were such an influence because I saw what a great player you were. I would listen to every WVU game. And one of your friends was from my hometown, a guy named Jerome Anderson, who played in the NBA, played at WVU, and he was a little bit ahead of you. But I knew knew Jerome and played hoops with him in the summer. And Jerome died at 55 from leukemia, but he was a role model for me. And he played 4 years in the league. And WVU, it was a habit for you guys to play in the league. And Marshall, we played a pretty good schedule, but there was a 30-year stretch there after Mike D'Antoni and Russell Lee played there. Our claim to fame player was Hal Greer. And this weekend they put a $350,000 statue out in front of our building at Marshall of Hal Greer. It brought tears to my eyes, and because I've heard so much about Hal Greer and knew him a little bit. But Mike D'Antoni also played at Marshall, and he was also one of the reasons I went to Marshall. And but just you talk about the competition, but the real learning experience is like the big restaurant back when I was growing up as a kid was I'd never had a filet mignon. The big restaurant was Shoney's.
Yeah, I remember Shoney's.
I'd never been in a 5-star restaurant or a 5-star hotel, but when I was in college, I'd never had shrimp cocktail. And these guys would be ordering their meals and shrimp cocktail, and I'm like, wow. Or having fish, and I was lucky to get a cheeseburger. A steak to me was a hamburger steak, and I was happy to have it. And I didn't have our family didn't have a lot of money, but we had a lot of love. And I always tell people, we also had the big D, discipline in our home.
Yeah.
And when somebody knocked on the door, we were taught to stand up, and all 5 of us would greet the person that walked in the door and hug and say, hey, thanks for coming. And man, if you didn't, my dad would hold you accountable. But anyways, you go on to Marshall, and you think the times are tough. Looking back, it's the only time in your life I know you were on a full ride. I was on a full ride. Didn't have to pay. I wrote my signature 4 times, and everything was paid for.
That's right.
You were a superstar on your campus. I was a superstar on my campus, and I was just thankful for the experience. And then I jumped out into the world of coaching, and And really and truthfully, I look
About that. Yeah. I mean, how was that transition? I mean, from playing to coaching?
it was difficult because you think, here you are, you played in the Southern Conference, and you think, man, I'm ready to coach. Well, coaching is way different than playing. You don't realize it until there I am spinning the ball in my head, and here I am. That's three different speeches there. Those photographs were taken, but at the end of the day, you're really and truthfully, um, I got my first head coaching job at 25. I think I applied for 275 jobs. Everyone said the same thing, but one person who was super kind to me and really helped me get into coaching was Gil Catlett. I know he coached you for a couple of years, right?
Yes.
Yeah, just a class guy. And you guys, really and truthfully, those were some of the best teams W ever had when you were there. And I know W now is on a whole nother level with Coach Huggins, but those were great teams. And but it was tough because now all of a sudden you've got to be able to discipline kids and recruit kids. And the key to being a successful college coach is your ability to recruit.
That's right.
And your ability to schedule and be honest, and then recruit people who can help you. But then again, if you're coaching your team and you don't win enough, you're out.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't have social media, and now there's so much scrutiny with coaching. I mean, Bob Huggins has got 900 wins, Hall of Famer, and he'll lose a game, and I'll hear people, you see people on different networks and being critical, and I'm like, when I was coaching, even I didn't have any of that. Certainly had some barbershop coaches in the stands and your fans when things didn't go well. But I spent 30 years in coaching. I had 500 wins, and coached at UCLA, and again, UCLA's John Wooden and all those championships. But the biggest thing I realized being at UCLA, the coaching was the same as coaching at Marshall or coaching at the University of Charleston, the University of Pikeville, small college. They made the same mistakes, and you were a mentor. And that's what I always tried to do. And I had a 95% graduation rate, and I'm most proud of that. Now, to the fans, they could care less. I was at the Marshall football game. We were down 10-6 to Old Dominion yesterday, and there was a course of booze at halftime. And I'm thinking, wow, I wonder how many games these fans could win if they were down there as the head coach. But we pulled the game out, which is a good thing. But coaching it's a hard profession, and you don't make all the right moves. You don't make all the right substitutions. But one thing you can be is honest and a motivator for these players. And the other thing that you have to have when you're coaching is you set the tone of your office and your locker room and your attitude. I have a second book, and it's called Success. Attitude is Everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I firmly believe attitude is everything. And as we age, life's tough. I mean, get a couple wrinkles. I'm like, wow, a couple gray hairs, and you're just thinking, man, this is going by fast. And it seems like yesterday we were playing and matching up in the Charleston Civic Center, and you were taking me to school. But just so many great experiences through coaching. But you learn. Some of the best advice I got was from Bob Huggins. He said, fake it till you make it. He was coaching Wash College when I was coaching Pikeville College. And then he got to Cincinnati, he got to Akron, and then he got Cincinnati. And we've always stayed connected. And I thought maybe at one point I might have a chance to work for him. But he used to say to me, you need to be a head Division I coach. You got to go for it. And he's always been great to me. But, the ultimate in coaching is, you're coaching your team, and you get the call that one of your players' mom has passed, or dad has passed, or grandmother's passed, or a player has had 2 or 3 bad games, and your ability to pick him up, and those are the things to me that make great coaches, and building those relationships like you and I have now. I know we're on this podcast, but man, we've had lots of conversations in the last couple of years.
Oh yeah,
talking
definitely.
about life and your career, and this you were talking about doing the blueprint, and here you are, and I'm on it. And we talked the other day, and I was sharing some things with you, and you're always sharing things with me, and man, when you talk, I listen because I know I'm going to learn something, and you come at it with this, the spiritual angle always, and that's very meaningful to me. because as years have passed, I've moved very heavily in that direction.
Well, yeah, and I didn't know I was going to retire when I did, but I had hooked up with you maybe about 2 years before that,
Yes.
and we started talking about, um, we're going to transition back into some continue to basketball, but just for a moment, I was talking about uh, looking at my future, right? And I like to share, I like to communicate, and I realized that when from your playing to your coaching, I was following coaching and stuff like that, and then the University of Charleston, and then I realized that you had transitioned from coaching into public speaking, motivational speaking, and it was something that I had desired to do, to be able to motivate people, to encourage people, to not only what you just were talking about was coaching. Really, you're talking about, yeah, coaching. Most people think coaching is just about winning games, but really, you're developing, young men. As my wife coached a high school team, she, one of the purposes, I used to always say, I think you ought to, coach the girls, because they need to see strong women, right? They need to see leadership. They need to see what it looks like to be successful, and they need guidance. And that's the powerful thing about coaching, is that it's more than playing games. And so the when I was looking to transition and thinking about transitioning, getting into speaking and doing what I'm doing now, this was like 3 years ago. We started talking this, right? And I knew you were in it. So for me, you're in terms of public speaking, motivation, all that stuff like that. You've been my mentor, my coach for the last 2 years, and I want to thank you for all your advice. And we were on having a conversation the other day. So how did you make the decision to make the transition from coaching, and what made you make that transition from coaching into motivational speaking?
Well, uh, my mom used to always say, right back to my mom, "'Tis the season," and "'tis the season" means that this season was. Now we're in the season of baseball. You're going to play baseball, then basketball, then baseball. I play all the sports growing up, and I wasn't. I was like a wooden Indian. I wasn't good at anything, but I love sports, and I truly love basketball, and I really wanted to be good at it. But anyways, um, I'm 20 years old, and again, when I went to Marshall, Stu Aberdeen he was not only a coach, but he was a speaker, a motivational speaker, and he did a ton of speaking as coaches do. But he would speak at a lot of awards banquets. Well, when I was a senior in high school, I was West Virginia's High School Player of the Year, and he came and did my awards banquet in Mullins High School, and I'd already signed with Marshall, but he just really touched my heart from the things he had to say. And really, in college, he said, "I'm gonna get you a little contract with Converse." Converse was the Nike back when we played.
Mm-hmm.
We had Magic and Bird wearing the Converse, and it was the big shoe. And somehow they lost their marketing, and now Nike owns Converse. And the number one selling tennis shoe, to all your listeners, in the world is not an Air Jordan, or not one of these other shoes that Reebok or New Balance or Adidas have. It's that Chuck Taylor Converse.
Mm-hmm.
And they say the average teenager has 8 or 9 pair of those low cuts, those Chuck Taylors that we wore. We played in those, right?
Yeah, my favorite shoes.
Yeah. And anyways, so I came home when I heard that, and I asked my daughter how many pairs she had. She was in high school. She said 13 pair. And I'm like, wow. And that reinforced it. But anyways, he got me a little summer job going around to basketball camps. And Converse gave me 3 sweatsuits and some shorts and some sneakers. and I would go around and make, $100 or $150 and speak at these local camps. And I did that first summer. I'm in college. I did about 10, and the next one I did 20. But then when I got out of playing and realized that, what, I'm not going to ever be a pro. I'm just not good enough. And God's taking me this far, but I love basketball. I'm going to get into coaching. So the problem I had, no one knew me, even though I'd been a decent college player. No coaches on a national level knew who I was. And, the biggest thing that happened to me when I was in college is I played in the PIT. Did you play in that in Portsmouth, Virginia?
I did.
Yeah. So, it's hard to get into that. And Bobby Crimmins was able to get me in that. He was coaching Appy State, when I was in my freshman and sophomore year. And then he got his Georgia Tech job. But they had a cancellation with a guard, and they needed a quick guard. So he called me, and I was able to get in that. But realized that I'm not going to be a pro. So I took my ball handling, and then I traveled the world speaking. And I started off with, summer of 30, and then I was up to, 60 and 70 camps a summer. And I would leave, in early June and not come home until September. And I would be all over the U.S. And I would be in front of these major college coaches and 5-star basketball camp, and Rick Pitino and, Calipari and all these, incredible basketball people, Garth. I would speak at these camps. And there was another camp called BC All-Star down in Georgia. You were there.
Yeah.
And but I was never a standout as a player at any of those camps. But I was able to stand out as a speaker because I could spin that ball and spin it on my head and spin it on a pen and write my name, and on a razor and shave my face, and on a corner of a book and read, and just all the crazy things I could do with it. And I realized I had the wow factor as a speaker, not because of my speaking, although I am a good speaker, but because I could open up with the wow factor and get the person who wasn't even interested. I could spin them around because they would be intrigued with that ball spinning, and get them to listen to me. And at the end of the day, I realized that I was pretty good at it. And in coaching, you have to do a lot of speaking, and a lot of it's with the alumni, and your alumni groups, and fundraising, and with your president, you travel, and your AD, and so I did a lot of those speeches I've done over 2,500 talks. And now for the last 10 years, I've done corporations and colleges and universities, and my market is college athletes. I speak to the athletic department as a whole. And the whole message is you can do it. And don't allow your scholarship to use you. You use the scholarship, because we all know, even at Alabama, 95% of their football team does not play in the NFL. Did you hear me? 95% of Alabama do not play. And so my dad said to me, you got about as much chance of playing in the NBA as you do getting struck by lightning. And you better get your degree. And it was just the brutal truth. I know you're going to give it a shot, but that's the truth. And you better come out of there with that college degree, and you can take that ball spinning and your motivation and all that. So I've been speaking for 40 plus years. And I've seen your wife, and I know what kind of a recruiter you are. You should have been a Division I head coach with your recruiting ability, because you got her. And I know what a strong woman she is. And I know all about your wife. I know she doesn't know much about me, but I know a lot about your family, because I've studied your family. And then I've heard you talk about your wife and brag behind her back. And so I feel the same way. I'm married to a Mountaineer. I went to college. I couldn't get one of those Marshall girls to marry me. So I met a WVU girl. I motivated her and conned her. And my wife, Donna, is a proud graduate of the WVU's undergraduate in science, and was a nurse, and then went back to med school. When she came to Marshall's med school, she met me through one of my college teammates. And then my son, who's 26, out in business, is a proud Mountaineer. And so all the time they're walking around with the WVU gear, and I'm like, I got to go get my washer gear on. But I do have one picture, Lowe's, pinned to my refrigerator of me in a WVU cap.
Oh yeah.
And I'm also a huge, and I don't miss, Bob Huggins, when he came back to the States, said, I'm going to make you a Mountaineer fan. And I was already a pretty big Mountaineer fan, but I watch every WVU basketball game, every game. I love Huggins. Coach Huggins is a dear friend, and I love the Mountaineers, and I love the league they're in. But the motivation just kind of took off for me, and it's been my life. But it all started with my parents, my high school coach, my college coach, and now you're at the starting line with that, and you just like me, I was able to get some momentum, and one speech turned into two, and two turned into four, and then the pandemic came and fired me. So I've been fired for a year and a half. So I want to go ahead and ask you for a loan. I know your wife will say yes. You probably won't. But I just need a little cash to get by on the month. But in all seriousness, the motivation's been a huge part of my life, and I'm always listening. And as you were talking, and I was watching your shots, as your wife was, orchestrating the blueprint, opening, and your son, I was like, that is so cool. It was so motivating, and it made me want to do a podcast. I can't even spell podcast, and there's just no way in the world I'd be able to do a podcast. But anyways, occasionally I'm on these type things, and they're neat. And you don't know who's listening. You know people are listening, but you just never know when you're going to touch somebody at a low moment, and you're going to be the one. And then 20 years from now, they're on a show themselves. And there was this guy named Lowe's Moore, and I was in the boys club, and I was smoking weed and doing all the wrong things, and he grabbed me by my shirt collar and said, you can do something with your life if you'll listen to me. And they end up on a Division I basketball court.
Yes,
And
right.
I know you and your wife have touched so many people, and I was super impressed. You had your sons with you when you were here to visit, and I came over and got to meet them, and just super impressed with your boys. And again, I know all about your wife, and if she can do this podcast, I might need to hire her, man. This is incredible. She made you look good. Did she put makeup on you? Because you look pretty young tonight.
No makeup, no makeup. No, it's the lights.
Okay, that's good.
Okay, so and so, yeah. Since we're talking about motivation, talk about the importance of motivation, because some people think we're not in a pandemic. We're still in the pandemic. I'm sure your wife will tell you, as a doctor, we're still in the pandemic, right? And
yesterday I went to the game and I was still masked up. I see, the whole stadium's, nobody has a mask on, and I'm wearing my mask. But what happens to people in motivation is, the whole key to everything is when you decided to plant the seed on this podcast, you did a lot of thinking about it. And I know with your wife, and you're hanging out with her, and you're retired, and you're running the ideas by her, and like I do with my wife, and without question, my wife is the smartest person in my life. But so many times you just need to set the goal, and then figure out how to plant the seed on the goal, and then just do it, and kind of stumble through. But so many times, with any goal, there has to be motivation. You're not going to be able to snap your fingers and make anything happen. But what happens to so many young people in life, and older people? I know I was like this when I retired from coaching. I'd spoken for 30 years, and now I'm going to start a business with my company, Greg White Speaks. And I leave my job. I'm unemployed. I'm home. I'm on the internet, and I'm looking at all these websites, and I'm like, wow, my head's spinning. And I had to go get some help. I had to go hire some people that knew how to build a website, and knew how to encourage me. And the best thing about motivation is you have to overcome the reasons why people don't set goals. And I'm going to touch on all four the reasons that people don't set goals real fast. And the first reason that people don't set goals is, they're wanting to make things happen, but they run into what's called dream killers. And dream killers are the four reasons that people don't set goals. Now, you didn't just get to the NBA. There were people behind you going,
Mm-hmm.
you can go. There were people behind you saying, you need to go to WVU. That's a perfect school for you. Because I know you had countless offers. And but you didn't just get to the NBA. You had a goal. Denzel Washington, your dear friend, just didn't wake up, and he's one of the best movie stars in the history of the world. And what a speaker he is. I mean, I've never met him. I'd love to meet him through you, but I know Joey's met him and Jason G's met him. And I know some people that have met him, but I've heard his talks and I've studied his talks and his ability to speak. But the first dream killer is fear, spelled Fear. You have to break down the barrier of fear. And I won't harp on this. And the second reason is a poor self-image. And oftentimes you can see this. I was telling my wife this earlier today. You can see this gal, and she's a little heavy, and she doesn't have the best clothes. But then you talk to her, and you're like, "Wow, she is so cute and so smart." And you just and the same thing with a guy with just as a kid, not as an athlete, and he's maybe a little skinny, maybe a little timid, but when you get up on him, man, he's got great skin. He's shit, you can just tell there's something about that guy and girl, something special, but no one's ever told them. And they're and when you're talking to them, they're looking at the floor. They've never been taught to, you gotta look the person talking to you in the eyes. And then the third reason that people don't set goals, they've never been sold on the importance of setting goals. And you said something that I believe in wholeheartedly. I taped as a ninth grader in southern West Virginia, Mullins, West Virginia, the coal fields, to my mirror in my small bathroom, to the mirror. High school player of the year on a piece of tape. And 4 years later, I was the high school player of the year in the state of West Virginia. And as a ninth grader, I averaged 1 point a game on a 20-0 team, and I was a starting point guard. My bottom line is, someone told me to write my goals down. And then the last reason is that people don't set goals is they don't know how. They've never been taught to set goals. And it's amazing to me. My son went to WVU, world class. I mean, WVU is an incredibly elite university, but they don't teach you how to set goals in a classroom. They don't. But as a coach, you have the ability, as a motivational speaker, you have the ability to get people one-on-one and say, listen, it all starts with goal setting, and here's how you set those goals. And real quickly, since we're on the subject of goal setting, with your listeners, I'm going to just go real fast through this. But I'm going to go through the six different things that have to happen in the goal setting process. Okay. And it'll just take a second. The first one is the decision to do something big that's going to require a goal, like this podcast. The second thing is the commitment to it, because you're busy. You've got your grandkids, and I saw you on Facebook with your grandson and how proud you are. And I know your wife's got the honey-do list, and I need you to go to the store, Lowe's. And you're like, yes, ma'am, like me, hey, take the trash out. Yes, ma'am. I want to tell my wife, you do it. But I'm like, yes, no problem. I got it. The first decision is the first step is the decision. The second one is the commitment. You made a commitment to do this, just like you made a commitment to get out of WVU and graduate and play in the pros. And that ran its course. And you made a decision to run the boys club and do it. The third thing is the planning and your goal. And that's, how am I going to do it? The loser says, can I do it? The winner says, how am I going to do it? And then the next step is the preparation. Okay, I'm going to Myrtle Beach from West Virginia. I'm going to need a roadmap. My car's not going to take itself. I've got to develop my roadmap, which you've done with this. Now you're doing it with your speaking. We talked about this the other day. And step 5 is the execution of putting all the things together in those earlier steps. And then step 6 is after you reach the goal, okay, Lowe's, you've got this amazing podcast. It's functioning and you're making it happen. Now it's time to recommit to getting your speakers in, getting your different personalities in. I saw the group of people that you've had, and we've talked a little bit about some of the other people you're going to have. But it required you calling me and saying, "Hey, Greg, would you be on my podcast?" And so you've done that, but now you've got to recommit. Now you're wanting to do the speaking in the school systems and in the corporations, and you know how many speaking engagements there are in New York City. You don't have to leave your state. I have to travel. I mean, you've got a gold mine right there in the city, with all the people that you have in that city and the people you know. But at the end of the day, those 6 steps, it's pretty simple. But what happens is the kid, he goes to he's hanging out with the wrong people, because you are the 5 people you hang around with. And if you're hanging around with 5 winners, you're going to be a winner. If you're hanging around with 5 losers, you're going to be a loser. And if you're hanging with 2 winners and 3 losers, you got a chance to go either way. So, but you've got to make the decision. Like my wife went to med school. She had a professor at WVU say, "We're not sure you're smart enough. We know you're a nurse, but we want you to go back and take these classes." Well, she had to listen to that professor and go back and take these 4 or 5 classes and prove to that person, or the med school thing wasn't going to happen. And so she did it. And the same is true with, how powerful teaching is. That's the most underpaid job in the world.
Yes, it is.
And I don't know who came up with all the pay scales, but how in the world can a teacher make someone that spends 40 years in teaching and has all these kids go on to do amazing things? But from my graduating class, there's like 12 medical doctors. There were 80 kids from our class, and that was one biology teacher convincing all these kids to become doctors. That teacher did it. And but at the end of the day, it comes down to making good choices and your friends. And now I look at all my friends, and my friends are people like you, people that are successful, people that are winners, people that do the right things, people that have said no to drugs their whole life. And then I have friends that have gone down that road, that have turned their life around, and they made the decision and they set some goals to come out of it. But it all starts with people encouraging you. Like, as we were talking about the speaking, I know I constantly said to you, "You can do this, man. You've got it." And the thing about you is you've already spoken a couple thousand times, because that group of 3 kids or 3 girls or group of 6 kids that you're mentoring to in the boys club, that's a speaking engagement. And that's a stage. You're on stage, and those kids are, and I know you've got plenty of kids that have gone on to play hoops, and they're out there in the world that you mentored and you have on your podcast. And it's great to be alive when you consider the alternative. We got that ice cream that night, me, you, and Joe Frizz.
Yes.
And Joe was stricken with a brutal disease and died. And here we are, Lowe's, all these years later, 2 of the 3 having that ice cream you guys were chomping down. And Joe was incredible, a great player, great person. And you guys were, and when I played in the pickup game, I'm like, these guys are so good. Remember Perno and Huggins fouling everybody and elbowing people. but at the end of the day, WVU had a huge, I mean, you made your name at WVU. You're in the Hall of Fame. And then you recommitted. You got on a plane and you went and you played in the NBA. That was your goal. It wasn't no accident, but there were people that helped you. God helped you to get the Boys and Girls Club. You set the goal. You had to go interview. And when you left, I mean, you could still be doing that, but you'd had enough. 'Tis the season, like basketball and football. We all go through the seasons. Joey right now is our buddy we talked about from UK is transitioning and about to retire. He still plays hoops, but at the end of the day, nothing lasts forever. Nothing lasts forever. And these jobs are just that. You hold the place for as long as you're in the job, and then someone else takes it. And then so many people retire and they die of being bored, boredom.
That's
And like you couldn't sit home and never do anything. You've been too active. Your wife would smack you. I know she would.
true.
You're looking at her, but she's looking at you going, "That's it."
She's always fussing at me.
Right.
Yeah. That's why we got to get this next career rolling. Yeah. Well, we're rolling. We're already rolling. I'm thinking big, right? And when I call Greg up on the phone, and I know he's probably on a call or something like that, and he's at the end of it, he says, "This is Greg White and think big." And I said, "This is Lowe's Moore, and I'm thinking big."
That's right.
Yeah, you got to think. You got to think big, man. I mean, you got to think outside the box, and to add to why motivation is important, and we're getting down in terms of time, but why motivation is important. But the other side of it is why people, individuals, and some of the schools. Well, I wouldn't say schools, but individuals, because when you speak to school, you're actually not speaking to them individually, but you're speaking sometimes to a group, and then sometimes it's important to have somebody speak to you individually, and the same thing for businesses. And so, why do you think is important? And I heard you said earlier the number of places that you've gone to speak, and why do we need coaching? Why do we need somebody to coach us, to train us? Why do we need those things in a day and a time like this?
I've actually been on a sales call selling what I do, and on the other end, the person will say, "I'm just not convinced that motivation works." And I'm like, "Can you imagine if you decided one day that showers didn't work? I mean, you need a shower every day. I mean, and I said, I bet you take 2 or 3 showers a day at certain times." And the person will, "Don't you?" And they'll say yes. And I'm like, well, motivation comes in different forms. It can be something you see, someone you speak to, someone that speaks to you, and you can motivate people in so many different ways. And my whole life there's been someone behind every decision, every goal I've had, saying you can do it, and then I believed them. And then I've also had plenty of people in my life, like when I was going to get into coaching. I'm 23, 24. I went to Europe. I was trying to play. I'm living with Mike D'Antoni, and he went in to sign his contract in Milan, Italy. And I'm out in the car, and he said, "I'll be back in 20 minutes." And 5 hours later, I'm still sitting in there. Him and his agent are still negotiating the contract. And I decided I was going to go back to the States and get in coaching. Then I got back, and I had a lawyer help me write a resume. They don't teach you in college how to write a resume. And the other thing, when I got back, I didn't have my college degree, so I had a couple courses I needed to finish up. And no one ever says, "How long did it take you to get your degree?" or "What year did you graduate?" Do you have a degree or not? If you want to be a teacher, you got to have a degree. You want to be a coach, you got to have a degree. You want to be a doctor, you got to have a degree. The degree just makes a statement. And if you don't know how to dress for success, and if you don't have the motivation to comb your hair and look sharp, and I've seen you dapped up in your GQ outfit, lows tied up back in the day, and I know how you played it. But you got to be clean, and people got to look at you. And I had people say, "You know what? You don't have any family in coaching. You shouldn't do it. You're not going to be able to do it." And I had the opportunity to listen to them, or I could listen to the people going, "You can do it." And the greatest thing, God gives us all talent. And I've lived a life that I've loved. I've loved my life. Not that I haven't had adversity, because I've had plenty of it, but I've loved my life, and I've been blessed. But without motivation, I got to get up every day. I own 2 companies, a basketball company and a motivational speaking firm. If I'm not motivated and my phone's not ringing, I got to create business. And like the the podcast. It's 7:15. You called me tonight. You're making sure. You got your son and your wife there behind the scenes running the show for you, and you're making sure I'm ready to go. That's motivation. You had a goal of pulling this podcast off and getting me on and making sure that you were able to conversate and encourage some people here tonight. But the motivation is a huge part of everything, and then again, no one's motivated all the time. I mean, you have those dips where you lose your motivation or you're a little discouraged, and that's when I always tell kids, and it's unbelievable. Here's my email. Email me, and it's unbelievable. I'll do a motivational speak in front of 800 athletes. I'll get about 15, 20 emails, and those emails are crazy, and they're just unreal. Some of the tough stories that you'll hear from these college athletes, but you're able to respond to them and encourage them, and even occasionally you've got somebody on suicide watch and call the AD and say, I just want to give you a heads up. This person needs some attention, and it's just, and then so many times, you talk about dimes. I know you in the NBA, you weren't the scorer you were in college, but you had a lot of times you were an assist man.
That's
and
right.
you would drive to the basket and dish it to somebody that could dump it off. Well, in college, I was mostly an assist man. Every time I tried to take a shot on you, you blocked my shot. So, in my first matchup against WVU, I scored 2 points. I know you remember that. I got two points. Okay. And we lost 80. No, let's see. I can't remember. It was a close game. I think we lost 83-77, but I got 2 points and I was averaging 10. If I get my 10, maybe, just maybe, we win the game. So I had a choice. I could go back and say, I'm not good enough. I'm not going to play. Or I could go back and lead my Marshall team to some wins. And a couple nights later, I had, 31 points against South Carolina, 2 against you. Remember Zan Frederick?
Yeah, I remember saying.
Yeah. Anyways, I dosed him up for 31. Now he dosed me up too, but I got my 31. But my point is, motivated people, when they have failure, they get more motivated. And like when you were doing this podcast, you had to call some people. How do I do this? What are the steps?
Oh yeah, definitely.
And you went through the growing pains, and you had to have your son who knows all about computers. I know you don't, and your wife help you. And like tonight, this is running very smoothly from my perspective. Watching you, I don't see her and him, but you couldn't do it without them. You're a team, right?
No, I couldn't do it.
And now you've got multiple podcasts that that are in storage, that are in the history books, but people can still listen to them. So at the end of the day, the motivation is just so important.
Yeah, I see. Was it Kevin Pollins? Yeah, he's mentioned it a couple of times down here about motivation.
Kevin, you can call me at 304-550-7888. My website is gregwhitespeaks.com. Again, gregwhitespeaks.com. You can email me, and I'll be happy to jump on a call and tell you how you can become a motivational speaker and give you some encouragement.
Yeah. So before we get out of here, let's Greg, tell us, tell us again how people can get in touch with Greg White.
Well, I have 2 companies. I have gregwhitebasketball.com, which is a consulting firm, which I help young kids that are decent high school prospects, both boys and girls. I basically teach the parents how to help their kids. And, the kid may call me and his grades aren't right. And I'm like, listen, man, you got 2 years to get these grades right, because you've got to have grades to go to college. Greg White Basketball is also it's a individual workout company. It's a basketball camp company. And throughout my career, I've had over 45,000 kids in my basketball camps. And then my second company is Greg White Speaks. And prior to the pandemic and it firing me, like every other motivational speaker. So now I've got to be motivated to get back on the comeback trail and set the goals and chip away at it and build a new website. But I can be reached on both of those websites, gregwhitebasketball.com, through my email, and Greg White Speaks through my email on the website, or you can call me on my toll-free number on those sites. So that's my contact information, and there's tons of information on that basketball site, as well as the motivational speaking firm. So if you are listening and you have an interest, and please reach out to me, and I'll do all I can to help you.
And then, you know, as we come to this close, you know, if you had something to say as a parent on here or a young person, speaking directly to young people, but a parent may be on here, that the parent could share it, or there may be a young person on here, you know, that what would you say? Say something impactful to them to encourage them or motivate them.
When I was 16 years old, my dad told me, without question, you're the smartest 16-year-old in the world. When I was 17, he said, you're without question the smartest 17-year-old in the world. He said the same thing at 19 at some point when I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing, and then 20, and then 21. But about 23, 24, 25, I came back to my dad, and I realized how smart my dad was, even though he had a 10th grade education. And I never made a big decision from getting married to buying a car. I was 25 years old. I wanted to buy a car. I had no credit. And I had to come back and ask my dad to co-sign for me. But I would say to every parent, parenting is the hardest job in the world. I have 2 children. My daughter's an engineer, graduate of the University of Kentucky in Lexington, Kentucky. And my son just does all the right things all the time. And then my son is a little bit more difficult. He's a graduate of WVU. He's doing well. And I'm married to a super gal who's a medical doctor. But at the end of the day, what I would say to everyone listening is the same thing I say to myself every day. If it is to be, it's up to me. Because at the end of the day, you have the power of you. And that's all the power you're ever going to have is the power of you. But you have to figure out how you're going to use it. I see people all the time. They're 60 and they retire, and they're retired for a month and they're bored stiff, and they go back to work at 60 in 1 month. And then I see people sit around and put on 50 pounds. They don't walk, they don't exercise, and they're 62 and they die, have a heart attack. So if it is to be, it's up to me. And you just never know when you're talking to your children or the kids down the street or someone that's on the wrong path. You may be that bright light that changes it all. Because at the end of the day, it comes down to your willingness to help others. And, it's just amazing if you'll extend a hand as an adult. There's no greater power than when you stoop to say something positive to a kid, whether it's the neighborhood kid or your kids. And I know what kind of parents you and your wife are, Lowe's. And I know, you've got several children, and now you've got grandchildren. And I know how proud you are of your kids. And I'm proud of my kids. But my hardest job ever has been a parent, because, we've been dealt a few hands over the years as families, when I lost my dad, when I lost my mom, and tough hands. But, somehow, some way, always fight through it. And I'm just very prayerful that I can continue to have a life to help others and be a positive role model. And anyone that ever calls me, I just try to take the time for them, because maybe I'm going to be the one to push them over the top. And I just tried to be that encouraging force. Yesterday, and I'll close with this, I was at the Marshall football game, and a couple of my players came down, former players from Marshall. They were at the game, and they were at homecoming. And I didn't know I was going to see them. And they came down and sat with me. And they were talking to me about me helping them with their first job, or one of them had gone through a divorce, and them calling me and me coaching them through it, and how to get a bank loan. And a couple of them needed to finish their degree and how to do it. And it's just, we're all in just such a very unique position And I know there's adults out there right now listening that are dealing with darkness. And call me. I'm anxious to be a mentor or some help or say some positive words. So, but I tell you, I appreciate you having me on, and your wife and son. What a great thing. I mean, I'm fired up. I'm going to have to call your wife and have her come over and stay with me for a week and set mine up. Your son as well. I'm flying you down. I'm flying you down.
Yeah, oh my God. Well, Greg, I want to thank you, man. Greg's I didn't know if my wife, I don't think she knew that you're my mentor, my coach when it comes down to this whole public speaking. And I have many, many conversations with you. And I don't say that I was, well, one of my weaknesses at one time was being a procrastinator, but I wasn't even out. I wasn't retired at the Boys and Girls Club. Right. And I was already calling you. And so in between writing the book and dealing with stuff at the Boys and Girls Club and trying to help it grow, I did procrastinate a little bit in regards to the transition into what I wanted to do next. But I'm here now and I'm thinking big. And so, Greg, I want to say, number one, tell your wife, I said, thank you for giving you the opportunity to come on tonight, taken away from her time.
She was up there helping sell out your building, watching you play in college.
Oh yeah, that's a good thing.
Well, I want to say this to you. I want you to go from good to great to terrific to fantastic to sensational. And there's going to be that day where you go from good to great to terrific to fantastic to sensational to absolutely marvelous. And you're going to be up in front of thousands of people speaking and mentoring, and you're gonna go from this podcast into the speaking arena, and you're going to be incredible. Lowe's Moore, I love you. You're a brother, and you're a special guy. I love your family, and thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, you're welcome, and thank you for taking the time and coming on. So to everyone out there who support the Blueprint Podcast every week, I want to say thank you, and I want to say, like Greg says, think big, and have a blessed week. God bless you.
We really hope you enjoyed this episode of Lowe's Moore, the Blueprint Podcast. Stay connected and follow us at our website, www.lowesmore.com. That's LOWESMOORE.com. You can also join the discussion on Twitter at Lowe's Moore and on Facebook at Lowe's Moore Jr. As always, thank you for pushing your mindset towards a better reality. This concludes the most thought-provoking portion of your day. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast to stay fully up to date with everything we're up to. Until next time, be kind to yourself and each other.
What they teaching is a joke. I ain't buying it like I'm broke. Insufficient funds for insignificant.